That pinball wizard came from the moon. It's Galactic Pinball on Virtual Boy Works Episode 2. Like tennis, pinball is one of the oldest genres in video gaming, and as with tennis, Nintendo systems have a long legacy of coming with a new take on pinball in tow. We've already seen this in action with Pinball for NES and Revenge of the GATOR for Game Boy, two solid renditions of the old-timey arcade attraction. So it's hardly a surprise that Virtual Boy would launch with a day-and-date pinball title as well.
Welcome to Space World. Let's go.
There is a significant difference between Galactic Pinball for Virtual Boy and its predecessors. This one comes to us without the involvement of HAL Labs. Where HAL collaborated on NES Pinball and wholly developed and published Revenge of the GATOR, they had nothing to do with Galactic Pinball. Instead, this game appears to have been an internal joint project between Nintendo R&D 1 and Intelligent Systems. Given that the R&D 1 division had designed the Virtual Boy, it was division boss Gunpei Yokoi's baby, and Intelligent Systems has been intimately involved in the development of new tech innovations at Nintendo since the NES days, there's nothing particularly surprising about this. Indeed, many of Nintendo's most impressive games came into existence as joint ventures between these two groups. That includes Super Metroid, to which Galactic Pinball is something of a follow-up. Roughly half the Galactic Pinball team came to the project immediately following Super Metroid, which perhaps goes a long way toward explaining the cosmic theme behind this pinball adaptation. It would also go a long way toward explaining its excellence, because this is a pretty fantastic rendition of the vintage amusement, despite the lack of participation by HAL Labs. Galactic Pinball is something of a standout for its time. It compares quite favorably to contemporary video pinball titles. For starters, it offers a remarkable 4 tables, each with a different sci-fi theme and gimmick. In 1995, many video pinball titles were still coasting along with a single table. For comparison, Maxis's well-received Full Tilt Pinball would arrive a few months after Galactic Pinball with 3 tables. And Epic Mega Games' Epic Pinball offered a total of 12, but 8 of those shipped as add-on packs. I'm not a pinball connoisseur by any means, but the tables included in Galactic Pinball all seem solidly designed. Each table has its own feel. The Cosmic Table has considerable depth and a third flipper to help keep the ball toward the back of the field for extended sessions, while the UFO table has a more shallow layout and crowded design that results in faster, more challenging play. Of course, it probably helps here that where other pinball games of the era featured dazzling, detailed graphics and color, Galactic Pinball had monochrome visuals, stark red on black. Nintendo could cram more tables into this cartridge because so little of the cartridge space was given over to graphical data. Aside from the monochrome look though, Galactic Pinball's visuals are very much a product of the period. Unless I'm overlooking something, this appears to be the first internally developed Nintendo game to consist entirely of pre-rendered, computer-generated graphics in the wake of Rare's eye-popping success with Donkey Kong Country. While I tend not to be a huge fan of pre-rendered graphics, in this case the style works well. After all, pinball tables are meant to be made of steel and glass and plastic, so the cold and precise look of CGI suits the format. It also makes for a great and subtle application of Virtual Boy's 3D capabilities. Galactic Pinball rarely pursues dazzling flash and in-your-face 3D chicanery. Instead, it takes advantage of the system's visual gimmick to bypass a limitation commonly seen in older console and handheld pinball titles: limited vertical resolution. After all, pinball tables are meant to be far longer than they are wide, so bringing them to televisions, which in 1995 were very slightly wider along the horizontal axis than vertical, meant designers either had to compress their table layouts or split them across multiple screens. Galactic Pinball, however, manages to present tables with impressive depth despite the Virtual Boy's widescreen visuals, by tilting each table back at a steep angle and sending the ball into the virtual depths. Now, this wasn't the first video pinball title to make use of this concept, but it's by far the most successful. The tables are rendered on each screen with a contrasting parallax effect that creates a 3-dimensional image. The front edge of the table lines up on both screens, while the back of the table occupies a very different position in space for each eye. The result is a very convincing, if somewhat headache-inducing illusion that you're looking into a table and flinging the ball into its depths. All 4 tables here fit onto a single screen apiece, or rather, 2 paired-up overlapping screens, but they contain as much play space as the stacked screens in Nintendo's previous pinball titles. I mean, it's not quite as good as playing a Switch pinball title with a flip grip, but for the dark ages of 1995, it ain't bad. Now, I keep referring to the ball here, but that's not quite accurate. Instead of a ball, you control a puck, which glides around a strangely friction-free table. I can't begin to guess why Galactic Pinball doesn't simply use a ball, but there is an appreciable difference in the control physics here from standard pinball games. The puck feels a bit slipperier than you might be used to in video pinball. It definitely takes some getting used to. Of course, this is video pinball, and that means it's crammed with electronic video game novelty. Every table in Galactic Pinball has its own unique gimmick, each with a different degree of complexity. At the simple end of the spectrum, you have the alien table, in which an alien head appears in the center of the table and elevated alternate pathways materialize above the playing field. By far the most intricate gimmick appears in the colony level, where meteor swarms slowly make their way toward the space colony you're defending, and you're forced to gun down the space rocks by using the D-pad and flipper buttons. This meteor storm is Galactic Pinball's most conspicuous implementation of 3D visual gimmickry. The targeting reticle is almost impossible to use without stereo vision, as you can see from my terrible performance here. It particularly stands out because the rest of the game's parallax effects are so subtle and static. It also helps exemplify what makes Galactic Pinball so interesting. Every table does its own thing. I've spent a couple of hours with the game, and I still feel like I've only seen and deciphered a fraction of the different table mechanics here. Most notably, I know there's a Metroid-themed minigame hidden in the Cosmic table that I've never been able to open up. But every table has its share of esoteric bonuses, ranging from extra roulettes that open up opportunities for million-point bonus plays, to predetermined events that alter the shape and nature of the playing field. All four tables, Cosmic, Colony, Alien, and UFO, make the most of the overarching space theme and lean into the corny 50s-style sci-fi aesthetics that feel so absolutely perfect for pinball. The graphics may be monochrome, but they include just enough flashy effects and animated elements to keep things lively. Every table includes all the standard pinball elements you'd expect, from plungers to trapdoors to drop shots, but the dynamic video game effects introduce more unpredictability to each session. There are plenty of surprises here and plenty of linked mechanics to figure out, meaning the revelations and realizations you take away from each brief play session accumulate over the long term. I don't really have too much more to say about Galactic Pinball. It's an excellent take on video pinball that makes effective use of Virtual Boy's tech, offers a huge amount of variety on each table, and by the very nature of the subject matter, lends itself to the quick play sessions that work best with the Virtual Boy's screens. Honestly, I feel like Galactic Pinball should have been the system's US pack-in instead of Mario's Tennis. Kids will buy Mario games regardless, but Galactic Pinball is a strong title that plays to the system's strengths, yet has a fairly niche appeal. But oh well, it's not like Virtual Boy was defined by great decision-making. Even so, Galactic Pinball is a must-have title for the system. It's not just a great Virtual Boy release, it's one of the finest pinball sims of its era. Next on Virtual Boy Works, Little Mac falls victim to the age of automation.